Awesome. Thank you everybody so much for being here today. We're going to have interpretation, so bear with me as I interpret for myself. Buenos días a todos. Muchas gracias por estar aquí el día de hoy. Vamos a tener la interpretación disponible, así que ténganme paciencia en lo que interpreto por mí mismo. My name is Alejandro with Community Language Cooperative. We have interpretation in English and Spanish today. So on the right-hand side of your screen, if you're here through Zoom, you can go ahead and click on the globe icon that says interpretation. That will go ahead and give you the English and Spanish option. You can go ahead and click on your language and then mute original audio so that you only hear the language of your heart. Bueno, pues el día de hoy tendremos interpretación, como dije, en inglés y en español, así que a mano derecha de su pantalla hay un globo hay un icono de globo que van a poder seleccionar para escoger su idioma. Pueden escoger el inglés o el español y después poner el audio original en mudo para de esa manera solo escuchar el idioma de su corazón. We do want to make sure that if at any moment in time participants on Zoom are able to unmute, please make sure that you are muted. That will make sure that we have clear audio coming in for interpretation. We would also like to ask all participants to keep your camera off just so that we can make sure our bandwidth is continuous. Bueno, también queremos pedirles a todos que si en algún momento pueden prender su micrófono, que mantengan su micrófono en mudo o en silencio para de esa manera poder escuchar el audio con claridad y poder interpretar adecuadamente. También nos gustaría pedirle a cualquier participante que mantenga su cámara apagada para asegurarnos de que la señal siga fuerte. Si alguien tiene algún problema o pregunta con la interpretación, mándenme un mensaje privado. If anybody has any questions or any issues with interpretation, feel free to send me a message. Thank you all so much. Gracias.
Hello and welcome to the last of our four-part series, Immigration is an LGBT Issue, Love Across Borders. I wanted to let you know that Alejandro just gave a really great spiel for folks who are at home watching on Zoom so they can hear in Spanish. And I wanted to also let you know that for the last 3 Tuesdays, we have shared stories of LGBT immigrants and learning how to deepen our support for their leadership and resiliency with the themes of youth, family, hope, and today, connections. Tonight's program on connections will be followed by an incredible entertainment produced by the Black Actors Guild. Thank you. Some people have gathered here at the Raíces Brewing Company, an incredible immigrant-owned brewery that is very COVID conscious and serves the best beer and pizza in town, if you ask me. And others are joining us by Zoom or Facebook Live. And still others are watching later on YouTube, so welcome to all of you. This 4-week series highlighting the critical needs of our LGBTQ immigrant siblings, some of whom are seeking asylum in the United States, is brought to you by Mariposa at the Althea Center, in partnership with the New York-based Immigration Equality and the American Friends Service Committee, Colorado. Other partners include the Colorado Immigrant Rights Coalition, Padres and Jóvenes Unidos, the Rocky Mountain Immigrant Advocacy Network, PFLAG Colorado, and the Center on Colfax and Heal Denver. Initially, this series was supposed to be an all-day symposium at the beautiful Althea Center in April, but COVID-19 changed all that. However, this format actually gives us a unique way to share diverse stories from the LGBT immigrant community members and ask the deeper question, what can we do? For many LGBT immigrants, the global struggle for self-determination has brought them to the US border. From there, there is more for us to do and a great need for more folks to get involved. And now I'm very lucky to introduce Tim Wilson, who will share more about our wonderful guests. Tim is the mastermind behind these events these last 4 weeks and is the program director for Mariposa at Althea, Embracing Wholeness. Tim?
Thank you, Jordan. And Jordan has been an incredible contributing member of our planning team. This event wouldn't have happened without Jordan and also Reynaldo Morales from the Center on Colfax. Tonight, I'm honored to be able to introduce Bridget Crawford, who's joining us from New York City via Zoom. Bridget Crawford has served as legal director at Immigration Equality since October 2018. In this role, Bridget oversees Immigration Equality's legal services, impact litigation programs, detention advocacy, and policy initiatives, including management of Immigration Equality's caseload of approximately 650 matters nationwide. These matters include asylum, withholding of removal, Convention Against Torture claims, among others. In addition to all of that, Bridget directly represents clients before U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, immigration courts, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Department of Homeland Security. Prior to Immigration Equality, Bridget was a litigator focusing on federal and state court litigation, appellate work, and administrative proceedings. And most recently, she served as general counsel for a global entertainment brand. Now I'll pose a few questions to Bridget and then turn the program over to her. Why don't you tell us exactly what Immigration Equality does? I think a lot of people may not really have a sense of that. What are the challenges for LGBTQ asylum seekers under the current administration? And what is the situation for asylum seekers who are currently in immigration detention? And maybe most importantly, what can the rest of us do to help? So now please welcome Bridget Crawford.
Thanks so much. There seems to be a little echo here. Let me see if I can change a little something on my side. Oh, that seemed to have worked. Thank you all so much for having me, and thank you for hosting this really wonderful event, and for all the attention that all of you are paying to these issues. I think they're near and dear to all of our hearts, and really a lot of discussion needs to be had around them. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Just to give you a sense, I'll dive right into Tim's questions about what immigration does, Immigration Equality does. We're a national organization, and we provide free legal services and advocacy for LGBTQ and HIV positive immigrants. I think, as probably many of you know, in more than 80 countries, it's either a crime or profoundly dangerous to be LGBTQ and HIV positive. And Immigration Equality's mission and expertise are centered around securing safety and freedom for LGBTQ and HIV positive individuals fleeing persecution, as well as advocating for LGBTQ binational couples and their families. Now, we do this in a number of ways, but I think probably the way that I'd like to talk about it tonight mostly is focusing on legal representation. So as Tim mentioned, we represent asylum seekers primarily in their immigration court proceedings, and also in their proceedings in front of the agencies that determine asylum for folks that are applying. So I know tonight's theme is connections, and that comes into play a lot in our work. For Immigration Equality, I think one of the main places that we really see connections are between clients and advocates that help them navigate this very complicated legal system. Now it sort of depends on what study you're looking at, but an asylum seeker with an attorney is 5 or 7 times more likely to win their case than an asylum seeker without an attorney. And if you kind of look at this in comparison to, say, criminal context, in that context, folks are entitled to an attorney and in fact provided one. However, when you have people in immigration proceedings, while they're entitled to have an attorney, it's not provided to them. And so the deck is really stacked. It's a very difficult system to navigate on your own, especially if you're an English language learner. So, you know, I think that our clients face hardships, and I think that there are a lot of sort of systemic things that we can all do to change this and equal the playing field and really be much more welcoming to asylum seekers and other immigrants in our country, especially given the climate now where we are hearing a lot of hate rhetoric. There's a lot that we can do to really change the landscape. just to give you a sense of some of our clients and the people that we serve, I thought I'd share a couple of stories. Now, their names have been changed to protect identities, but I just wanted you to get a sense of what some folks experience. Ariana is a 23-year-old transgender asylum seeker from El Salvador. While in El Salvador, she was harassed and repeatedly detained by police on false charges as a means of terrorizing her because of her gender identity. On one occasion, the police falsely accused her of stealing money from a gas station. She was briefly detained at a police station where she was stripped naked and placed in a cell with approximately 100 men. And I just want to also give a trigger warning here. Some of these stories are really hard to listen to. So as the police looked on and laughed, she was gang raped by other detained people, and at no time did any of the officers intervene. Ariana fled for the United States and was ultimately granted asylum. Nasir is another immigration equality client. He is a gay man from Mauritania who grew up knowing he was different. One day, his mother caught him alone with another man and told his uncles that he was gay. His uncles came to the house, beat Nasir, and threatened to call the police. Soon after, his family sent him to Islamic school in a remote part of the country to live under an imam's guidance and relearn the teachings of Islam. If he didn't cooperate, his uncles said they would call the police. Now, Nasir knew he had no choice because in Mauritania, same-sex relationships between men are punishable by stoning. And Nasir knew that gay men were often sent away to be disappeared. So, having little choice, he lived as a servant to the imam and was beaten and humiliated in front of other students. Luckily, one day he escaped, hitchhiked back to the city, but when his uncles discovered that he was back, they kidnapped him and beat him. Nasir fled to the United States, where he was granted asylum. And I know these client stories are really horrific, but I want to emphasize that while the people we serve have often been victimized, they are not victims. They're survivors, and the sort of connections that I think we as advocates really benefit from is that we are constantly inspired by the people we serve. I know personally, I'm motivated to be braver in my own life. I look at the people I serve and I'm just constantly humbled by their resilience. So what are the challenges that are facing LGBTQ asylum seekers under the current administration? Well, there are a lot of them. It's really unprecedented. I think there have been somewhere in the neighborhood of over 800 policy changes under the current administration, and I would say a whole lot of them are really bad for immigrants and certainly for asylum seekers. I think we've seen a concerted effort to really undermine the whole asylum system, period. I know that I'm going to be long-winded and take up too much time, so I'm just going to touch on a few of these these problematic policies. So many of you may have heard of Remain in Mexico, or otherwise known as the Migrant Protection Protocols. I think a lot of us find the reference to this policy as protection protocols pretty offensive because it doesn't protect anyone. It requires asylum seekers, while they're awaiting the adjudication of their asylum claim, to wait in Mexico. You know what? I am hearing a big echo. Is that also coming through on your end? I just want to make sure we're okay. Is that better? Can you still hear me? Oops. Okay.
Yes, we can hear you. There's a strong echo.
Okay. Is that a little better with the echo?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the Remain in Mexico policy, which requires asylum seekers entering at the southern border to be returned to Mexico during the course of their asylum proceedings. And so there have been over 1,000 recorded incidents of people in this program being physically assaulted, kidnapped, and even killed. It's really not safe. And also it makes it very difficult for asylum seekers to access counsel. And as we mentioned before, not having legal counsel really hurts your chances. So, you know, this policy is being fought in the courts, but we want to make sure that we try to fight this policy through every means that we have. There are several others. There's one known as the Asylum Cooperative Agreements or Safe Third Country Agreements, which sends folks back to a third country that maybe they have no relation to. There are 3 countries currently that the US has made deals with, Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. So before someone has an opportunity to seek asylum in the United States, they're just sent right back to one of those countries. Really problematic for LGBTQ asylum seekers because those countries are not fundamentally safe for the population. And then we've made it more difficult for asylum seekers to get work authorization. Now we're going to become one of 4 countries in the world that will charge asylum seekers a fee for their application. And then kind of the granddaddy of them all is a regulation that is scheduled to go into effect, but hasn't, thankfully, yet. And it really kind of undermines asylum altogether. It looks like it could conceivably even cut out the ability for anyone to seek asylum on the basis of their gender identity. So we really want to prevent that rule from going into effect. Whew, lots of bad stuff and a couple more challenging things just to touch on, and that is the situation for folks in detention. I think for a number of years, we've seen a lot of bad conditions in detention and an increase in the population in immigration detentions. And this is really needless. It costs billions of dollars a year. There's no reason to have you know, people pursuing their immigration claims in what really amounts to prison. There are lots of alternatives, safe, sane, healthy, and really respectful alternatives. And so through our advocacy, we've heard from folks for years about horrific conditions, lack of hygiene items, unsanitary conditions, sexual harassment. There's a study that shows that LGBTQ people are 97 times more likely to be sexually assaulted in immigration detention than the rest of the population. Horrific conditions for trans women who are often housed in male facilities where they're harassed and assaulted. Just to give you an example of this, we had someone call relatively recently, a young trans woman in her late teens, I think she was 19. She was punished and put in prolonged solitary confinement because someone tried to grab her and assault her and she defended herself. But the way the video footage caught it, ICE thought that she was fighting, and in reality, she was preventing an assault. Really horrific medical care, especially for some of our HIV positive clients, and really a difficult time accessing attorneys and all of the things that folks need to really present their immigration cases. And then, of course, COVID hit, making all of this much worse. And I'm sure everyone is well aware that probably the worst place to be is in any type of detention facility during a pandemic. And we've really seen egregious abuses, lack of information, lack of sanitary conditions. We have one client who, after the pandemic hit, they were really given no information about COVID-19. Everything they got, they gleaned from watching TV. And then she and others in her unit went for 9 days without soap or toilet paper in the midst of a pandemic. So really egregious and horrible conditions. So after all of this and talking about how difficult it is for folks and all of this bad news, I feel like we really want to talk about what we can all do about it. And I feel like it is, to kind of go back to the theme, it is about making connections. And I think there's a lot that we can do. I feel like one of the most important things we can do is use our voices to connect with people in our community, in our, across social media, in our families. Speak up and say that you care about refugees, that you care about LGBTQ rights. Amplify immigrant voices. Tell your communities that these voices and these issues are important to you. I think that today's news cycle is so jam-packed with so many things that a lot of these stories and a lot of what's happening is really being lost, with the exception of maybe family separation, which is horrific, but it goes so far beyond that. I think you'll see the amazing organizations that are taking part in this, follow them on social media and support their campaigns. I know we do, and I'm sure the others do. You know, we'll collect signatures to petition to get one of our clients out of ICE custody, to send comments in on these horrible regulations, follow, and then retweet or use your social channels to really raise these issues up. Vote. I think that could be one of the most important things that we do, and make sure that you contact your representatives, tell your congresspeople, tell your senators to support the bills that support refugees and LGBTQ folks. Call them, say you're horrified by the actions of the current administration against immigrants, and you want them to pass legislation to reverse these horrible regulations, and that these issues matter to you. We've got to put pressure. Volunteer. If you're a lawyer, come volunteer with Immigration Equality, volunteer with any of these amazing organizations. If you can interpret for a local immigration organization, your skills can be put to good use. Create a sponsor network. There are a lot of folks, LGBTQ folks in immigration detention, who need a sponsor. And this is quite a commitment, because sometimes people are waiting for their immigration hearing for a couple of years, and they need a network, community to go to, somewhere to live, someone to support them during this. And in fact, ICE won't let people out of immigration detention without that sponsor. And create that network. It's a great thing for churches and community groups to do, to really show your support. And donate. You can support nonprofit immigration, LGBTQ rights organizations with your money too. So thank you so much. I think I've gone over time, Tim. I'm so sorry. It's been a real honor being here with you.
And we're going to jump in. But if you would like to write letters to trans women in our detention center here, let me know. I'm just about to send an email out. If some of you signed up last week, I'm just about to send an email out with the details. But if you give me your email address tonight, I will make sure you get that, those details. Also, if you'd like to thank Senator Bennett for something, he did something really good today, or maybe it was yesterday. He tried to put forward a bill to make it impossible for ICE to transfer people from prisons to detention centers, which is really, really good, because that can help prevent the spread of COVID. So thanks, Senator Bennett. There are some ways that you can also donate to some efforts that we're doing for women who are trans women who are coming out of the detention center. We want to make sure that they have like makeup and phones and a couple $100 to get them through. So if you want to donate to that, we can share that information here and with that with you. And now I'm excited to say that I met Carla recently. She was here last week and got introduced to some of the planners and agreed to share her story a little bit this week. And so I'd like to introduce Carla Rivas, right? Rivas. And I'm gonna go ahead and start out with a little question, and then you can jump right in. But Carla, if you could tell us a little bit about your journey and your story, and then if you could share with us one thing that kind of surprised you when you came to the United States.
First of all, thank you so much for having me here today. This is such a valuable event that I think a lot of individuals need to listen and connect and make sure that they're voting this year. So I am Salvadoreña from San Salvador. My mother as a single woman, decided to migrate to the United States towards the end of a bloody civil war. So El Salvador, the civil war started in 1975 and did not end till 1992. So we migrated here in 1991. And I was a 6-year-old kid. I migrated through Guatemala. I have some interesting stories of my stay there, from not having food to eat to sleeping on the floor, and my mother, being the fighter that she is, making sure that I had a food in front of me, right? And then we migrated to Mexico. Luckily, we had some additional support there. And same story, you know, in El Salvador at that time. Now we're very Americanized and influenced by so many cultures. I had to learn how to eat jalapenos and serranos, and they had at the house we were staying at, we had to stay on the floor, and like they had someone that used to cook for the family, and I remember hating the food because it was too hot and spicy for me. And it was only on one day they would serve spaghetti, and I was like, I to this day I'm not a fan of spaghetti, but I will eat it. So you know, spaghetti days. I lost a lot of weight. But finally we made it to Austin, Texas, where we established our roots, and I was determined to not have an accent, which, by the way, accents are cool. Look at Sofia Vergara. But I just grew up in Austin, graduated from Texas State University, and I just moved here a year ago. And what was your other question? Oh, what surprised me? My mother, coming from when I was almost 6, I saw violence. I saw someone get killed. And so my mother was like, America is, when we get there, the person that we're staying with, they have a gold piano, and it's so beautiful. And we get to Texas in the middle of winter and everything's dead. Like, it's like super plain. And I'm like, Mom, this is not the place you told me. So I think that was very shocking to me. And also just being able to, I got to meet other kids my age that were not from El Salvador. And Austin does not have many Salvadorians. So I got to meet a lot of Mexicans. So I was like, they were making fun of me for like certain words I used to say. And I think at one point I pointed with my middle finger, and I didn't know it was a bad thing. So it's just like cultural stuff that you don't know from being from different countries within like Latino America. We have so many different words and so many different gestures. So that was very interesting and shocking to me. So.
Thank you. Oh, yes. It's like, I can't do that, but. And Carla, could you share with us a little bit about what you would like to see from the queer community here in Denver?
Yeah, so I think, I've been thinking a lot about this today. And I think if you're able to have a voice for a community that doesn't have representation, whether that means being a mentor, being involved in politics, or even just donating, I think that's a big impact in general. Throughout my life, I've had so many different mentors from different races that have influenced my life in general, so.
Okay, here's another curveball. What is your favorite thing about being queer or LGBT?
Right, so I consider myself bisexual. I think my favorite thing is that I see love as love, and when I meet the right, I'm currently married to a man, and when in the past, I just saw people for who they are, and just being able to love someone for just being who they are is something that's very special to me. And I don't think a lot of people get the opportunity to experience that love, that intense love where I don't know how to explain it, but yeah.
Thank you. And the other question I had was, what do you think that the immigrant rights movement in Colorado could learn from the LGBT movement?
That's a good question. Let me think about it. I think that today's topic is community, right? So I think that when individuals are coming together as one voice, that can move a mountain. And I think whether it's an immigration issue or an LGBTQ issue, they're both valuable and they interact together. And I think as a community, we need to step up and do whatever we can to be a voice and a representation. I hope that answers your question.
No, that's great. Thank you. And then if you could maybe just share a little bit about your family and where they are and how they are with all of this material.
Yeah. So my mother, just when she decided to migrate from El Salvador, she left her business, and for many years she worked as a housekeeper in the U.S. So if you know, I call myself a jack of all trades, so I can clean houses and I can be a professional, like, because she taught me that. She taught me hard work, and after so many 30-something years that we've been in the U.S., she finally opened up her own beauty salon last year, and she went to get her cosmetology license here at the age of 40-something. She didn't think she was going to make it after having to learn anatomy and et cetera, but she made it. I'm so proud of her. My stepdad, he migrated from El Salvador. His story is very unique. So he was a head of engineering company, and he was threatened. He got kidnapped and he was threatened, so he fled the country. And so he always reminds me of, you know, you can go from having everything to having nothing as an immigrant. And he remembers just coming like a week later after coming from El Salvador, being a housekeeper at a hotel in Austin, and just breaking down crying because it was just night and day. But now he's retired. He's a very energetic man. He can host a party and keep you up till like 5 in the morning, partying and dancing. So I'm very proud of him because he encourages me to still be authentic, to remember who I am, where I came from, and to not forget my roots, and just to keep fighting and keep being a voice for our community. And I have a little sister that is a spoiled little brat because she was born here. Like, I'm sure everyone has little spoiled brats, but I'm very proud of her. She is going to UNT, University of North Texas in Denton, and studying biotechnology. I'm very proud of her because she's very proud of her roots, and she started this or little tiny social media group that's called Serenidad that talks about it's just like about being proud of the way you look and your Latinidad and Latinx community. So that's where everyone, very small family, that's it. That's everyone in Austin, or the immediate family. The majority of my family is in California, so.
Great, thank you. So my last question is, what do you want people here tonight to take away from this event or from your story?
Yeah, so I think, it's really important to me. I think about all the individuals in my life that made an impact, that pushed me forward, and whether that's just a communication or a donation. There was so many key players in my life that allowed me to be where I am today. And I think if you're doubting if you can be part of an organization because it's time commitment, or if you should donate, or what organization to donate, regardless of what doubts you have, go for it. I think it's so important to, even if it's a little like donating clothes, that's important too. There's individuals out there that don't have a variety of options. So Please donate your time, donate your money, try to be a mentor, dedicate whatever that is to you, whatever that looks like to you, it is important and you can make an impact.
Thank you so much. Let's give Carla a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. It's really wonderful to meet you. Hope you all enjoyed that. A couple of things I'll mention real fast, and then I'm going to introduce Brian, who will be up on the screen. One is that the Asylum Seekers Project did a webinar last week that was called How to Be a Sponsor to an LGBT Asylum Seeker. And I have the recording, or I am promised that I will have it by the end of the night. I have the recording of the webinar, and we're actually going to do a local version that's put on by the Rocky Mountain Immigrant Advocacy Network, so that you can take all the information from that webinar and then also take it down to the Colorado part. So thank you for sharing that. That sponsorship is really important. Bridget shared that, and then mentorship is really important from Carla, because even if you can't be a sponsor for somebody who is an LGBT immigrant, you can be the person who supports that process. And Brian's going to talk more about that. Another thing is that there is a night of trans visibility that I believe is coming up October 22nd. I will double check the date for you. And it's going to be at Cheeseman Park, and that is where we will be inviting people to get makeup bags together to gift to the women who are coming out of the detention center. So we'll talk more about that soon. And I do want to introduce Brian Favre, and he is a really great person and an awesome person. I will share a couple of things about him as we're getting him up on the screen. One is that he called me out of the blue like 2 years ago, and he was like, "Hey, I heard you're trans, and I heard you do immigrant rights stuff." Who is this guy? But it's true. So he was like, "Let me take you to coffee." And I was like, "All right." And we sit down, we have coffee. Actually, I think he had tea. And he was like, "I'm a sponsor for 2 transgender women who are living with me now. And I just want to make sure that like I'm aware of like every possible thing that could be benefiting them as, you know, I'm like moving through this process, because they're like, you know, staying with me now." And I was like, wow, okay. So we like talked through a couple of resources, talked through a couple of things. And then since then, he has basically taught me everything that I need to know about what it means to really genuinely and authentically support someone going through some of the hardest times in their lives, and being a really incredible host and friend. So there's Brian. I don't know if he does, he knows I'm talking about. Brian, that was your introduction. Here you go.
Thank you so much. Those were very nice words, and I'm going to try to present while blushing. So my name's Brian, and I use he or they pronouns. And yeah, I had the opportunity to host 2 trans women from Central America, which was great. And I think we're going to present I'm here to describe a graphic. And I don't know if that is someone else's responsibility to put up, but I can share it real quick. Great. So I'm going to describe this graphic in a minute, but first I want to make sure the framing is what we want it to be. And I think, yeah, so I want to frame this around, in short, this graphic is the way that the community kind of bonds together to support an asylum seeker. And I want to make sure that it's not, an occasion for charity, right? Because charity can be a little violent. Charity can be, can take away the empowerment from whoever the charity is given to. And yeah, one of the things I learned from this process was how strong and how resilient these 2 women I hosted were, that they walked across the country twice with no money, and then were tortured at the hands of the US government for 6 months, and and then were released and now have to go through this incredibly re-traumatizing experience of trying to validate their existence and validate their why they escaped. So anyway, so the framing is that these asylum seekers are incredibly strong, incredibly resilient, and the community is just a fabric, right? A little a honeycomb or a hammock that they can rest in for a little bit, and that also pushes back a little bit against the cruelty of the U.S. government, right? That one person standing alone, it's really hard to gain asylum, but with the community together, we can push back against that cruelty, against that bureaucratic machine. And it is, you know, I said it at the beginning, it was an opportunity. It's really an opportunity because, you know, there are all these things you can do to systematically or institutionally change things that it's really hard. You know, it feels like you're a drop in the ocean. This is a way to individually support one person or support a couple people and really try to push the tipping scales towards something that's a little more just. So that's a very long introduction to this graphic. So I'll talk about the graphic now. And it's just a way to describe community, right? It's a way to, that in the middle there we have the person who's seeking asylum, and they're new to town, right? And in the middle there with them is their host. And they all of a sudden need all of these things to help in their case, right? They need legal help. That's a big one. And certainly, you know, the host perhaps could provide that, but it's maybe easier for the host if somebody else provides that. They need financial support, right? They're under a ton of scrutiny, so it's really hard to work. They don't have a work permit, and so it would be very hard to work without that work permit because they are under so much scrutiny from ICE and their consultants. And there's all these other things, right? For trans individuals, medical care is really important, right? Gender affirming care. And other things like emotional support, transportation independence. It's kind of hard to describe what it means to feel like you belong in a community, right? But it's safety, you know, it's your legal support, it's your medical support, it's your mental health, and then there's all these other things that make you feel like you belong, right? And that's the hope, the dating, your love life, your spiritual needs, your cultural community, right? And all of these things take time, but once it's there, it is super sweet, like a honeycomb. And so, you know, I think with the takeaway of kind of connections for tonight and the takeaway of what can we do is we create community, right? We weave together this tapestry. And we, being the people who I presume are sitting at the bar, sitting at that great brewery, and it's also the expanded community that there's lawyers and doctors and people who have ridden the bus before, who can show people how to ride the bus and show people, you know, like, hey, yeah, nobody uses that dating app. You know, maybe try this other one, or maybe go to Potrero, or you know, whatever the scene is. You know, spiritual needs. So I think everybody offers something, and what you offer is incredibly important. And whatever you do good at, you can offer that to this honeycomb, to this hammock, to this tapestry of support that we want to create and that we are creating in Denver. And that's my explanation of the honeycomb hive image. So thanks for letting me present that, and thanks everybody who went before. And I'll give it back to you, Jordan.
Brian, can you share a little bit with us?
Sorry, say that again?
Brian?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'll go ahead and share for Brian because he can't hear me. So one of the women that that Brian was hosting is a woman named Stacy, and the reason that actually she couldn't be here tonight is because she is was flown out to LA by the Trans Latina Coalition to speak at like one of their big national things, which is pretty awesome. So let's do. I mean, we should do like a little, yeah. Like, can we do some snaps for her? So she's really open about that. She's very cool. She also, when we had a press conference about a year and a half ago about the conditions inside detention centers, Stacy came and she spoke and she shared her story about being in detention centers, similar to what Carla shared too about the really terrible conditions inside detention centers. And she really stood up and did really incredible work with that. One other story of empowerment, my friend Carla Gonzalez Aguilar has spent almost 3 years in an immigrant detention center, and part of that time here in Denver, Colorado. And she, when she left the detention center, she had been inside for almost 3 years. And when she was able to finally leave the detention center, she was super overwhelmed. She couldn't sleep at night. She was like, I'm not used to sleeping when the lights are off. Like, that's not something I did in detention. And she was really overwhelmed. But then one day she called me and she said, hey, you said I could talk to Congressman Crow. And I was like, yeah, I did. But, you know, if you're really overwhelmed, you don't have to do that. No big deal. And she was like, no, Jordan, the pesticides that they were using on us inside the detention center to get rid of COVID, those are pesticides. They're not supposed to be used inside detention centers. And I have these terrible like rashes and I had like bleeding gums and everything. And Congressman Crow needs to know about that. And I was like, okay, I'll set it up. And so we set it up and she spoke to Congressman Crow and she actually, the Community Language Cooperative did interpretation for them. And she spoke to Congressman Crow in really incredible and powerful ways, even though she didn't have to, right? She was like super overwhelmed getting out of detention. She didn't have to do that. She now lives in California. She's got great sponsors there, but that's like pretty badass that she was like really driven to do that and to stand up for her friends who were still in detention. So let's give her a shout out. Well, if you want to learn more about her, you can just look up #FreeKelly. Amnesty International made a really great little film of her too. Okay, so I think what we heard tonight has moved very many of us. There's so much nuance to everything that we need to learn, and of course we need to keep on learning. There's so much to do for the struggle for justice and for LGBT immigrant siblings to be successful. We need all of you to pitch in. We need volunteers, financial support, dedicated community. We need people to work with our familia and demand justice. All we want from you is for you to pick something that you feel passionate about and that resonates with you and get involved. So I'm gonna share about a couple of the organizations. One is Immigration Equality. They want you to take action, call and encourage your representatives to support refugee-friendly legislation like the DREAM Act, Dignity for Detained Immigrants Act, and Refugee Protection Act. Voice your public support for those representatives who already support these bills through calls, emails, and social media. Work to create networks within your own local community that can support asylum seekers in need of sponsors. And get involved. You can also volunteer or donate to Immigration Equality. As she also said, they're looking for people who can translate documents. So if that's something you can do. At the American Friends Service Committee, get involved to help participate in making some resources available to trans immigrant women as they come out of detention. Phones, makeup bags, you can write letters to them. You can also just donate money and we'll put it on their book so they can call their family members and their friends. And Mariposa at the, just 3 years old now, Mariposa at the Althea Center, Embracing Wholeness, envisions an open and safe community for all, connecting LGBTQ plus individuals with each other and the world around them. Mariposa is proud to be the initiator of this 4-week program series and is honored to have worked with 12 other nonprofit partners in bringing you this programming. Supporting Mariposa financially is how you can support the overall $8,000 budget for this 4-week series. And there's a link that we can give you. The Center on Colfax opened in 1976 and has grown to become the largest LGBTQ community center in the Rocky Mountain region. Their mission is to engage, empower, and enrich and advance the LGBT community of Colorado. A few of their programs to volunteer with include the SAGE program for seniors, the Transgender program, and the Rainbow Alley program for youth. We'd also like to say a special thank you to the Center on Colfax for covering 1/2 of the cost of simultaneous Spanish to English interpretation for all 4 weeks of our programming with the Colorado Community Language Cooperative, which is a cooperative. It's like worker owned, which is pretty cool. And our deepest gratitude to the Raíces Brewing Company for sharing their beautiful space for our on-site venue, to Optimum Films for providing professional audiovisual services, to Alternative for donating some of their beautiful Freedom for Immigration for All creation t-shirts, and the Black Actors Guild for producing our entertainment segments each week. And with that, I'd like to welcome our entertainment MC from Black Actors Guild, Franklin Cruz. Woo!
There it goes. Look at how cute this is. We have a couch up here. Hi, everyone. My name is Franklin Cruz. I'm not going to stay up here long because we got 3 performances to get through, and I have biographies to read. Shall we do that? Of course. Great. Anyway, our first performer for tonight is going to be Rebel, Be Free, who is an Imaginista, a storyteller, or an organic theater performer, that sounds tight, and a collector of stories. She believes that owning and sharing your stories is an act of healing. Yes, nod your head, yes, yes. Reconnection with oneself and others, and it's a sacred tool towards social justice. Y'all, that was really tight. Make a lot of noise for Be Rebel, Be Free.
Buenas noches. Thank you everybody for being here. It's been a minute since I don't perform, so I'm a little rusty, but it's always an honor to be part of the healing of the collective by sharing our stories. Most of my career as an artist has been around sharing stories, holding space for people to feel safe to share their story. The first time that I was introduced to organic theater, it was in college in a US history course. Who would have think? I met the most rad professor you can ever imagine, and he was teaching US history by having us make skits about US, the people's history of the United States, great book. And he opened a space for us to share our story in a way that we can reclaim it, that we can own it. For me, that was radical as, sorry, kids in the house. For the first time in my life, I was able to separate for a second from my story, look at it from a different perspective, and then say, I own that shit. I went through that. And I don't want nobody to be telling my story. I don't want nobody to be saying that I am the victim or the hero or anything. Because it is very common when you give somebody else to, the freedom to tell your story, then they choose a title for you. And for the first time, I was able to separate from that and own it and share it in a way that I wanted. So what I'm about to perform right now is my story. And then we'll share a little bit more. I know domestic violence. I know sexual abuse. I know gang life. I know drugs and alcohol abuse. And I know all of those things from at a very young age. At age 15, I was a quitter. I quitted a gang, I quit drugs and alcohol abuse, I flee my country, and I quit everything that kept me from existing. I exist. I am whoever I choose to be. I grab an old backpack. I found courage what I didn't know I had. And I left. I crossed the border by myself at age 15. I was looking for another opportunity. I know this country was not going to give it to me. I know I had to create it myself. But I had faith. I knew my ancestors were in my back. I was not alone. It took me years to be able to tell this story in a way that honor the journey, in a way that honor what I was meant to be, what I was meant to become, because I did not know. When people tell me I do not belong here, now I can tell them in the face, that's a fucking lie. I am the people from the land. I am the embodiment of resilience. I am who I choose to be. And now I know that I can always flourish anywhere because I am an immigrant. And I am, more than anything, I am. So there were a couple of things that played an important role for me to be able to share my story. So the first times, as I was in my group with the Romero troupe, it was a lot of crying, it was a lot of shaking, it was a lot of remembering. But they gave me three things: safety, belonging, and love. Three things that was the secret ingredient for me to be able to separate from my story and share it. They asked me one question: if you were to share your story, how would you share it? I didn't know. It's complex. It's not pretty. It's not something that you walk around talking about it. But at the time that they provided those three things for me, slowly I started to see it. I started to see it in my mind. I started to walk through it and re-own it for the first time. To say, wow, this is my story. I walked through that on my own. And now people can say that, oh, another immigrant success story. But will people talk about me the same if I have never made it? Will my story be told if I have died at the border? Since then, when I think about what is the kind of art that I want to embrace in, isn't this one? It's an organic theater. Isn't created a space for people with safety, belonging, and love, so they can also reclaim their stories. So there is not people in the news or other people sharing their story and then making them the victim or whatever it is, because we just are. We're just people. We just want to have a better life. Last year, I was ready to go home. I haven't seen my family for 16 years. My parents, my siblings, my grandparents. When I called my mother to tell her that I was ready to go home, she told me, for who you are, you can't come back home. We don't know if it's safe for you as a queer woman. Stay where you are. Do it with joy. Continue to create that space for people to own their stories until you're able to come back and visit. But I don't know if this is a home for you. So when we talk about queer people, immigrant queer people, it is even more complex because we already don't know where are we gonna be safe? Am I gonna be safe to be myself in my country? Am I gonna be safe to express who I am with my people, with the machismo? So where do we belong? Well, we belong in those places where we can create those three things: safety. Y ya se me olvidó. Safety, belonging, and love. And every single one of us can create that anywhere we go. Smile. When you see someone, say, hey. Yeah, what's up? ¿Qué pedo? It doesn't take as much, right? To do whatever it takes so people can feel welcome, right? So I want to thank all of you for holding space for me to share my story after being a little bit rusty, and for letting me speak tonight. Thank you.
Is it cool if I use one of the mic stands? That's the quiet mic. The wire. Okay. All right then, friends. Thank you so much. Be Rebel, be free. One more round of applause. I was into it. At first, I didn't know what was going on. I thought you were going to dance, and then things started happening. But I was like, I'm here for it. I'm sold. So that was lovely. Hi, everyone. My name is Franklin Cruz. I'm going to be one of the other acts. I'm here just kind of representing myself. I would read my bio, but it's so much more entertaining for me to make up my own bio. So here we go, right? Franklin Cruz is a Denver poet who fought Jupiter and won. He is the reason it has the storm on its face. Franklin can also speak cat. It's true. Ask his cat, right? Franklin literally has the ability to taste sunlight. So talk to him because plants are his best friend. Franklin at this point is just going to start the poem because that was it. Cool? All right then, friends. My actual bio is I'm a poet, I'm a scientist, I'm a dancer. I'm just a person who's here to connect other folks. If you have been here within the last 4 weeks, I'm the one who brought the talented folk to come perform for us, right? So the coolest thing about this is when they say community, they're literally all my friends. So as much as like, you know, we can support your friends, make sure that they come into spaces where, you know, their stories and their art can be utilized in ways to support community. And I was like, hey, do you want to come do this show? They're like, what's it about? Told them what's it about. And they're like, absolutely, makes sense. So it's good to roll with people like that. I'm going to freestyle the whole night because I don't want to read anything I've written before. That's just who I am. So everything you're going to hear tonight, I literally am making it up on the spot. I got no idea what the hell I'm going to say. We're talking about butterflies, right? And mariposas and immigration and queerness. So that's what it's going to be the first poem. Also, who's been to an open mic? Thank you. Raise your hand who's been to an open mic. Y'all better act like you've been to an open mic. Snaps all the way around, faces, do this thing, do that thing, right? Because here's the worst, is like when you're in a crowd and you're trying to give out your soul and then someone's over there trying to be respectful and they're like, and that's all you see, right? So don't be that. Thank you, whoever that was. Cool. The monarch migrates all the way to Mexico. When it comes to Colorado, it has a relationship with this plant. This plant is the only thing to pull this beautiful mariposa out of the sky. Do you know what it is to traverse thousands of miles for one love? Every single immigrant does. Every single immigrant knows what it is to take your tiny little body that the wind can rip apart, give it into a country that knows nothing about its name or language or the trees that it roosts on when it is in Mexico. Do you know what it is to arrive to a country that knows nothing of your beauty, knows nothing of your transformation? Most people don't even know that most mariposas, they melt inside of the chrysalis. But all immigrants know this. All immigrants know what transformation actually feels like. That melting piece of your skin that you give over to your boss. That broken bone that you give over to the education system so your children can actually read a book in this language. That part of your organs that twist every single time you walk into the doctors because you are not able to communicate with the other adults. You have to rely on the child in front of you to do that. Do you know that kind of transformation? Where your whole body is melted down in the face of people who will never appreciate the R, will never appreciate the ñ, will never appreciate the ella and all the extra alphabet that we have to fit in because our words are that beautiful. Do you know what it is to come to a country where no one will dare pick up your dictionary? Do you know what it is to come to a country where people will try to tell you that you as a butterfly have no power here? Look at that helicopter. Look at that falcon. Look at that plane. What are you but a butterfly? But they do not know that in Mexico, the butterflies can blot out the sun during migration, that they cover up entire trees and all you see is orange from fields away. Do you know how beautiful it is to be seen from montañas who know you, like the mariposas who come over like a milagro? Do you know what it is to be that kind of transformation, that kind of translation, to come over into a way that says you do not need to speak any language to understand this struggle. You just have to know what it is to fight for a family, to fight for a home, to fight for a body that the wind wishes it could destroy. Cool. I'm just going to continue going along because why not, right? A lot of the things I've definitely heard during the 3 weeks that, or the 4 weeks that this has been going on is just the interconnectedness of all of this. So this is two communities alone, like the LGBTQ community and the immigrant community. But within that, I've also heard a lot about people in education. I've also heard a lot about people in nonprofit organizations. I've also heard a lot about people in education. I've heard a lot of different places. So this to me just proves that literally immigrants are everywhere. Right? Like if we're talking about only two things and I've heard about all these other things in the process, it's because we are everywhere, right? And we are doing things like literally the people who I've heard talk, they're educators, they're people who are organizers in the community to get resources out there, people who are literally just artists and making sure that the experience is translated in their eyes and in their words and nobody else's. Like these are the services that are being provided, right? Now, mind you, how many of you, no lie, can do what I just did? Right? It's a training that I had to go through, meaning I had to put years and years and years into training my body to just give in to the words that pop into my head, right? That is the same level of dedication that people have to go through when they are crossing an entire desert and have no idea what's gonna happen next, right? So if you are impressed by what I did, you should be impressed by what a lot of immigrants do flat out, right? Like if that's a metaphor in itself. If you are impressed by me creating something out of nothing, that is an immigrant trait if I've ever heard of one, right? It is literally creating something out of nothing. So let's do that. It's creating something out of nothing with a whole bunch of different topics to fit in. I literally always don't know what the hell I'm doing up here. I'm just looking at the ground because that's my focus spot. Yeah. Cool. Oh, here it is. Okay. I have a background in biology. My cousin has a background in speech pathology. The other one has a background in massage therapy. The other one owns his own business as a welder. The other one is a respiratory therapist covering everyone's COVID shifts because she's that kind of person. The other one enlisted in the army. The other one is working at the mercado because that's still a damn good job. The other one is raising children because that is also still a damn good job. The other one is teaching children because that was a calling they had even then before they were a niño. Something about being carried in their mother's womb when they were reading a book told them that you will be in that classroom. You will teach children calendars and days of the week and colors. That is your role because that's who you were even before who you were. There is something about my family where we must become more better than anyone around us. We must become the exemplary model citizen to every single immigrant stereotype because, yeah, we are that kind of person who's still willing to tell you you're wrong about having that stereotype. Take that stereotype out of your hands, make it our entire foundation for our family, and now we own most of the property in the small town in Texas. My family is that type of person who knows how to make the most annoying thing that people say about you the biggest challenge you can to show them, you know what, te mando el saludo California pa que entiendas that there is nothing you can challenge me at that I will not prove you wrong to. You can tell me that Mount Kilimanjaro is the most impossible thing and I will show you that it will roll off of my body like it rolls off of my tongue. You can tell me that del cierto me va a comer porque el sol es una cosa hambriente, but you do not know that mi gente somos del sol, so cuando el sol come, yo también como. Do you know what it is to have a reciprocating relationship with this land? To be able to say things to the land that tells its secrets to you and leaves everyone else who is illiterate in that language lost in the woods. I have been the type of person who found the way in the office before any other of my American counterparts did. I have been the person who came up with the novel idea inside of a production room because I came from that impossibility. They were like, how do we make a dancer, a poet, a musician, and all these slides work at the same time? And I say, have you never seen art? Have you never seen that impossibility create itself? Have you never seen a Frida Kahlo who literally did everything against Diego and her name still reigns supreme everywhere? Do you know what it is like to be that kind of person? To be that kind of bone, to be that kind of blood, that kind of tooth, that kind of spit, to be that kind of cellular composition, like tu madre, ojalá era una chingona, because some way it got into you, some way it hit your DNA, and now you walk like you own shit. You walk like you are from here. You walk like the land never forgot you and everybody else is just late to the game. There is something about my family, our feet laugh with the dirt. They try to take off our shoes and we say, now we run faster. They try to take the shirt off of our back and now we say, look at my skin, get more brown. There is a protection that rides within us. There is a espíritu that never left us. There is a lucha que nunca basta. There is something about my family that is always, always fighting. Cool. I'm gonna finish out with one more and then I'm gonna introduce the last person who is literally one of my favorite musicians in the whole realm. When I say realm, I mean physical and spiritual, and when I say realm, that's what I mean. Cool, okay, we're all caught up. I'm gonna do a last poem just for speaking positivity into existence. I am one of those people. If you do not believe in that, I do not exist then. Literally everything about my body was something I dreamed 5 years ago and then said, how the hell am I gonna literally have a biology degree with a background in arts trying to make this work? I was like, that ain't gonna happen. Who's gonna hire me? And then lo and behold, I am now here doing this. Right? I told myself 5 years ago, I want to be a person who literally works at the cultural level institution. I now work at the Science Museum, right? And I literally teach kids all the time about science without dropping my art. What am I currently doing? Right? Literally, I believe in you can speak yourself into existence because again, the impossibility metaphor that I said all those other poems before, case in point. Cool? Okay. So let's just dream a little bit because I think as immigrants, we are some of the best dream workers around. If you do not know what dream work is, the fact that this is happening is dream work. This was an idea that was in someone's head and then they said something about it and it became real. Dream work. Exactly. So like, you know, if you do not dream, if you do not imagine possibilities in the world, you are not accessing one of the most essential things about being a human, which is, again, the impossibility metaphor. Okay, cool. Se me hace poco difícil soñar en español. There are memories that are only saved in Spanish. En veces necesito batallar para entender esa persona cuando hablas español porque mi lengua quiere regresar to this American language. This way that it folds itself into all these corners and is this polite little brown kid. Yo no puedo ser chistoso en español. Me cuesta. Me cuesta tener que pensar and change this tongue, make it something that maybe all my friends will understand, but at one point I slip back into esta mente y aquí nadie me dice nada. Yo estoy seguro acá dentro, inside of this skull, this cranium, this castle of myself, there is so much happening up here that none of you are privy to, and this is my gift to myself. No teniéndole que decir nada a nadie. No compartiendo nada con nadie que no quiero. Todo lo que está dentro de mí es un tesoro y eres bien, bien bendito si puedes ver adentro de acá. There is this miracle that only exists inside of a creative person who loves themselves. The way they literally say, I will create the most beautiful thing out of sound, out of syllable, out of pigment, out of the movement of my hand in a beat, in a soft wind. There is something so beautiful when the most creative part about you is outside, when it is present in front of the gente, when it says, yo nunca me fui, por eso tú te pintas el pelo así. Haces esa trenza tan bonita que extiende desde aquí hasta acá. Yo lego todas las generaciones adelante de ti. There's something about the way our hands work when this jardín. There's something about the way our hands separate frijoles off the mesa. There's something about the way we play lotería, the way we shuffle the baraja, the way we make tortillas en masa. There is magic in these hands, and it must come from something. So as a biologist, I remember that there are nerves that extend to this brain, so these hands, they ain't nothing without this cranium. These feet, they go nowhere unless I dream it. This poem, this beauty, this belleza that I create, it is literally concocted from all the nerve impulses in this brain. So again, I return to el más último, the most pristine castillo I know, the last place I will ever exist and the first place I ever came from. There is a blessing in everyone's brains that you don't need to tell anyone about. It is your secret. And isn't that the most beautiful thing about you? All the wonderful miracles that happen every single day that no one and everyone gets to be a part of. Thank you. All right. I'm going to close this out by introducing the last performer of your night. This is a person who's about to serenade all your soul. So be ready. Open yourself up. I don't know how to do that, nor how to give you instructions to, but open yourself up. Kid Astronaut is a time dimension traveling musician, told you. Upon landing in this dimension, it became apparent that his mission in this timeline is to love, create art, and raise the vibration of the galaxy forever. Prepárense. Listen to Kid Astronaut on all streaming platforms and follow him on Instagram, Twitter, at Kid Astronaut AVT, and his website, Kid Astronaut, or KidAstronautUniverse.com. Make some noise for Kid Astronaut!
Hello, hello. Yo, first of all, man, thank you so much. Like, you're my brother. I just have to thank God every time I hear you speak. Like, you're that kind of spirit, man. So, thank you, bro. All right. So I wanted to do for my set today, I was like over there thinking, and I was like, okay, how can I like tie these songs together? So these 3 songs will be 3 aspects of love. And the first aspect of love is about universal love. The second aspect of love will be about self-love through challenges. And then the third aspect of love will be about relationship, or like, you know, partnership love. Said, are we bored of space? Are we bored of time? Do we hate each other? 'Cause it feels that way sometimes. Are we bored of love? Said, are we bored of art? Do we disconnect because we don't know who we are? turn back into matter. And all we think we owe will one day be gone. So I believe in real, the things that we can't touch. And I know that love will connect and protect us. Till we find our love. 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 I feel like I got something on my face. Is there something on my face this whole time and y'all aren't telling me? All right. So that song was called Connect. I wrote that after Trayvon Martin passed and just feeling all of these feelings. So this next song on my Spotify or whatever you listen to, you'll be able to find an EP from me called Alchemy. And this last year was just really difficult just in terms of like personal challenges and personal growth. But the process of alchemy is turning baser, denser elements into gold. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about with this EP. So this song was inspired by Paulo Coelho's book, The Alchemist. And yeah. Can I pray for you? Hallelujah. There's a healing in the sound, and the water that rushes from you will never let you drown. Pray that God always covers you. Yeah. Pray she always looks out. And if you're ever the only one, know there's love around. Yeah. I was a warrior in battle. Yeah. With my armor breaking round by round. But I found my strength in standing and never backing down. Yeah, I've been blacking out, pain been stacking up. Who are with me? Friends I thought were friends, turning mad unfriendly. That's a fire, that's a hollow feeling, that's a heavy burden. Pray that I still find a lesson, pray I never lose my nerve. On God, when I'm waking up, grateful life again, but still fighting all these battles seem to never have an ending. So unto the outcome, I live undone. From my trials came a champion. Outcome me. Pray that God will always lead and guide you. Pray that peace and love will always find you. Yeah. I was a warrior in battle. Yeah. never breaking round by round. But I found my strength in standing and never backing down. Yeah, never backing down. Thank you. All right, let's see. How do I play this song? Okay, so this last song, I am based in Colorado. My spaceship crash landed here. So one of my favorite places to hang out in the city is behind the Denver Nature and Science Museum. Because when you're sitting back there and you just look out like across City Park, you're just like, you feel like you're like floating through space on a globe. So that's my closest place to the stars right now until we get our spaceship fixed. So this song is hopefully essentially like a portal into that space. Sun is setting, darling. It might get dark out there. You might feel cold breeze call you in October. Yeah, I can't wait to see you underneath purple lemon sky. Waves of color paint are singing, and birds are dancing way up there. Yeah, yeah. I'll be jealous of their freedom, but I like it with you down here. I can't wait to see you underneath purple lemon sky. Underneath purple lemon sky. Underneath purple lemon sky. Underneath purple. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Ooh, oh, yeah. Purple lemon sky, purple lemon sky, purple lemon sky, purple lemon sky. Thank you guys, I'm Kid Astronaut.
So it's time to say goodbye. And my name is Tim Wilson. I'm the director of Mariposa program at the Althea Center, Embracing Wholeness. Would like to thank everyone who's participated in person. 3 wonderful nights here at Rice's Brewing Company. A special thanks to Jose on the sound and to Emil as my primary contact, and Mario, who's been the bartender all 3 times, and to everyone who joined us. It's a wonderful venue. They're open Wednesday through Sunday. Contact them if you'd like to do a community event on a Monday or a Tuesday. They've been wonderful to work with. We're also Want to acknowledge the people that joined us on Zoom and Facebook Live, the Spanish feed via Sisters of Color United for Education, and the English Facebook Live via American Friends Service Committee. Want to thank Rob and Sid from Optimum Films for our audiovisual recording. I want to personally thank Franklin again for organizing all of the amazing entertainment. And of course, the Freedom of Migration for All Creation t-shirts were donated by Alternate Bravo Screen Printing in Colorado Springs, a longtime contact there. They have top quality t-shirts. If you haven't got a tote bag, see me afterwards. There's a brochure for them. They have many wonderful t-shirt designs. So I just want to say again, thanks for everyone's participation, no matter how you joined us. If you haven't registered, register at the altheacenter.org/loveacrossborders. Sometime in the first week or so of October, we'll send the recordings. They'll actually be uploaded to YouTube, and we'll be sending those out. We'll have Spanish, English version for weeks 2, 3, and 4. And the first week, there was a glitch, so we only have the English. But you'll get 7 links that we hope you'll share far and wide for the programming that we have put together. And I also want to acknowledge the 12 nonprofit organizations that helped and were on our planning team. Thank you so much. So this concludes our night, and good night.